John Eiseman,
Can you spell it?
Eiseman.
And he was married to.
Christine Wary was her maiden name.
So where was your farm located that you grew up on when you were a little girl?
Oh, about 5 miles west and about 1.5 miles north.
Of Wishek?
Mm-hmm. And my husband and I farmed next to that farm, but my folks were not living there anymore.
So as a really young child, did your grandparents by any chance live with your family on the farm?
No,
And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
2 sisters and a brother.
Okay, and so then you must have had to help with the chores growing up?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
At what age did you start?
Oh, my God. I don't remember when I started. Like, milking was one of the important things. Gosh, I don't know, 7, 8,
What did you do when you were 7 years old? You didn't milk at 7, right?
maybe.
Maybe?
I don't know.
You said that milking was important and you did it by hand, right?
Right.
And why was that important?
Everybody had to milk.
But why?
Yeah, why? For money, for cream check. Oh, yeah, cream check.
So did you keep any of that milk for yourself?
Oh, yeah, Mm-hmm. But then, at that time you didn't milk that many cows.
How many is not that many?
Yeah, what did we milk? Maybe 10. And I was scared of cows.
Okay, so how do you milk a cow if you're scared of it?
Yeah, I was. And there were 4 of us. And I was the scaredest one of animals. And I'm the only one that became a farmer.
But because you married a farmer, right?
Yes.
So what was your husband's name?
Waldemar. Waldemar.
So do you remember anything about the weather when you were growing up?
Yes, I remember one thing really well. And that was my dad was working out in the field. Was he plowing or what he was? He was working south of the house. And I had to take water out to him. And a thunderstorm came up, and that must have been in the dry years, because it looked bad. I can remember that, but how I got home, or if my dad came home, I don't remember that part, but I know I took water out in this bad weather.
So did you get to wear pants when you went out working, or did you have to do chores in dresses?
I'd say we wore pants, because we had to do shocking, that I remember.
Tell me about that. What is that?
You bindered your crop, and then it was laying in rows, and then you had to pick up these bundles and put them up so the rain wouldn't destroy them.
Did you tie them together?
Well, the binder did that. And even my husband and I bindered when we were first married.
So did you buy that farm next there, or was that some? Okay, so that you bought that farm, but it just happened to be next to your parents.
But they were already gone from there. There was nobody living there anymore.
Okay, did you?
Well, actually we separated and fed the milk to the pigs and to the calves. And we took it in the cream to town like Saturday nights.
Tell me about that. Why on a Saturday night?
I guess the stores were open, they shopped, and we just talked about that a couple of nights ago. Men were in the bar and the women shopped.
So did you come to town to Wishek?
Yep.
And can you kind of remember a little bit about Main Street and the stores, or?
There was no parking places on Main Street because there was a lot of people in town.
Okay.
I remember the popcorn stand.
Was it like outside of the, it was just on the street?
It was, well, they had a little shed, a house, a little, what would you call it? Not a shed, not a house, a little building, where they had their popcorn in. And that was so good, that popcorn. And us kids would walk around the block, just for pastime. I don't think we went to movies.
So did you go to school in Wishek? In the
Farm
city?
school, 4-mile school.
Okay.
This one was out along the highway, and then another 4 miles was another one, and another 4 miles there was another one.
And how many grades did you complete out in those little schools?
8.
Okay. Nobody typically went past the 8th grade?
Then they went to high school. Then they had to come to town.
Okay, and how did they get to town? Did they bus kids into town?
No, not that time. No. After that, they bused the kids in, yep. Well, yeah, after the schools closed out there, then I think they bused the kids, yep.
So tell me about going to school. Were all the grades in one classroom? What do you remember about going to school?
Well, what I remember about school, my first or second grade teachers never taught phonics. And we were all in one room, and I don't know what grade I was in then, but that teacher taught phonics, and I got a lot out of that.
Do you speak German?
Oh, yeah.
Did you speak German at school?
Didn't know English.
Really? And how did that go for you?
I can't remember how that went, but and whoever you heard, they couldn't speak English when they started school. My age, My dad talked English poorly. My mother did pretty good, but my dad didn't. But, he talked English. He got along. Yes, yes.
Did you tell me that your grandmother came from the old country?
My mother-in-law.
And did she ever talk about what that was like over there, or her journey over there?
Some things she did, yeah. Oh, I had the best mother-in-law in the world.
Tell me about her.
She was wonderful. She never had a cross word with me, never. And we did a lot for her because Waldemar had Parkinson's, but not then. But Waldemar had a sister that never left home because of Parkinson's. She got it already at about 16, and she never got married or lived there. And Mother Diegel took care of her. And Waldemar had another sister, his oldest sister, had Parkinson's also. There were 3 in the family that had Parkinson's. We'd butcher chickens for her. We'd come in and clean her windows, and we did a lot for her. And I enjoyed doing it for her. She was such a good person.
Well, and
People in Russia or Germany?
Oh,
Russia.
Okay, so this
Russia.
is your mother-in-law talking about what it was like living over there. Okay.
Yeah, and they lived in town, but they had to go out to the farm. They had to go out every day to the farm. How far they went, I don't know. And anyhow, she was telling us that she was taking a load of wheat to town with the horses. And there was a big hill that she had to go down on. She said, I got off the wagon and I walked, she said, while she was going down this big hill. She told us that. I'll never forget that story.
So did she say why they came over here?
Because they heard it was so much better here. And they wanted their parents to come too, and they would not. I said, didn't you get homesick once you were here? And you know what she said? No. I could not believe it. I moved. Well, actually, we had to go further now because we got a road, and then we had to go further to the farm. We were 8 miles from Wishek. I got so homesick. It was the worst illness I ever had. And she said she never got homesick. Well, they had one child when they came. Maybe that helped. I don't know. But,
Because they could not have ever seen their parents again. There's
No,
no
and
way they could have gone back.
they got to Eureka. I remember that part. And then they had to come up here because they homesteaded land. On the way up, they had to stay overnight in between because they were coming with horses. And they tipped over their wagon box and stayed under that wagon box till morning. How different it is now.
And so they came out here with absolutely nothing.
Somebody at Eureka gave them a cow, I think, they said. So they must have brought that cow along up here too, walking.
cow?
When we started farming, you know, when I got married and moved out to the farm, I was living in town with my folks then. And I started out with an orange crate for a wash basin. Who would do that nowadays?
So did they live in a sod house or a rock house? Do you remember?
Let's see. I don't think. Well, yes, they must have, because I remember Grandma, Mother Diegel, saying that that dirt floor, and every weekend you wet this floor and smoothened it out. We don't know how good we had it.
Remember a time before electricity?
Yes, I did. I cooked with wood. I cooked with kerosene. We had a kerosene stove. We got one. I don't know where we got it from, or bought it, I suppose. None of us ever had to work out in the field, unless my brother did maybe. But I know he drove that tractor, but what he did, I don't know. But us girls, I don't think, 'cause my brother was the very youngest. I actually had two brothers, but that was a baby. He was 6 days old when he died.
Oh no, what did he die from?
Pneumonia, I guess. What, they had three girls and they had that boy and he died. Then they had another boy.
So did they have their babies at home?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Were there other relatives? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The farm that Walt and I lived on, Walt's sister and her husband lived there, and they were neighbors to my folks when my folks lived there. And she and my mother had a baby on the same day. She died with a baby, and my mother had her baby, and then he married another sister after that.
Did they have more children after
One girl. But I'm thinking they had a boy too and died, but I'm not sure on that one anymore.
Did they bury people out on the farms, or?
Not when my little brother is in here in the city cemetery. I want to get him a tombstone.
He doesn't have a tombstone? Then how do you know?
And Waldemar's sister that died doesn't have one either. You know, and you know, her husband died a long time ago too, but why he never, well, he didn't have the money like nowadays, you know. I already have it going that I want to get each one, nothing big, just so, know it's there.
So how did you meet your husband?
At a wedding, my uncle's wedding. I knew him before, but that's when it started. I believe I was a waitress, and that was out on the farm, that wedding, my grandpa's farm. And where their wedding was, this uncle, mine was there too. My wedding reception in that big house. Big house, big, not that big.
How old were you when you got married?
My minister asked that the last one, and I said 18 and a half. And he laughs about that half. But that made me older. But I was more than 18. I got married in November, then in April I was 19. I was young, yes. I didn't know how to cook. But my husband did. He was a cook.
Was that unusual to find a guy back then that cooked?
Yeah, very, very unusual. He baked bread, he made cakes, he did everything. Everything I did, he did. He vacuumed when he retired and I was still working at the home. He vacuumed, he dusted, he did everything for it. He was my house husband and he was good at it. One time he called me when I was at work. He got his thumb into the blender.
Oh my goodness.
I think he was doing Christmas cookies, I'm not sure. And he didn't have it screwed on. and it started to jiggle, and he was going to catch it, I guess, and he reached, got his... So did I have to come home from work and take him to the doctor to get it stitched up? I don't remember it anymore.
So how long did he farm? Was he able to farm until he retired?
Yes, but I think he already knew he had Parkinson's. Well, then, you know, everybody got this new big machinery, and we had this old stuff, you know. So we quit milking, and then is when I started working at the home. And then he farmed Lyle Beddenhausen. He rented our land, and to this day, he's still renting it. I got a good renter. He's like our son.
When you guys got married, you must have had to help while you milked. Did you help with any other kinds of outdoor?
I raked hay, and I didn't bale, that I can remember, and I combined.
Hey, did we ever finish talking about that shocking
Oh
stuff?
yeah, that bindering.
Yeah, okay, so so your grain grows up and it's ripe.
Right.
Then tell me what you do after that. Or when you
Then-
this is when you were a girl on your parents' farm. Tell me how that process went.
Then you had a binder, a machine. It was pulled by horses or a tractor, and it cut it, you know, and put it into bundles this big, and then it laid them down. It was always in a row, and then when time came, you had to set these. After the field was all done, and you had to set these bundles up. I know my sister Verna, married to Eddie, said, "Oh, she hated shock." And it was hot, you know, how it is sometimes in the fall, hot. It was hot. And then you had to set them up, and then you had to thrash these.
So were they setting up for days or just
Oh,
overnight?
no, they were setting up for weeks. Sometimes snowed on them until the thrashing machine would come to your yard, you know.
So you shared a thrashing machine with other neighbors?
Oh, well, no, you didn't own it. I mean, like my grandpa, he had a thrashing machine, and they would go to different farms and do this. And then you would header. You know nothing about headering either. Headering, it worked like a binder, but it went on a box. I mean, it headed it or elevated it up on a box, and somebody had to drive that team of horses with that box. I remember my mother putting the grain away when it came up on this box, and then I drove this, I handled this team, and I know if you got too close to the header, that made trouble, and I sometimes did that. I didn't keep my horses away, you know.
Was it dangerous?
Yeah, that could have been dangerous. But then Dad, I suppose, would have stopped the... And I thought that was such a hard job for my dad, you know, handling that header. You know, he had, I think, 4 horses on his header, or whatever you called it, and I had 2 on my box, and Mom was getting the grain away. And then when it was full, then they had to stop and unload it, put it on a stack. They stacked you saw little haystacks or stuff like that. Yeah, it was a stack like that. You know, they would stack it.
And then would it stay there, and then as you needed it in the wintertime, somebody had
No,
to go out and
then
get it,
when the thrashing machine came, they would thrash it, and then that's where your wheat, you know.
Okay, then you would have the straw.
Yes,
and
the
then
straw.
the wheat would go in the box, but then what would you do with the straw? Did you have
They
to come back
fed it to cattle. You know, they brought maybe those stacks in. People had they would just how would I say? Men working with forks on these stacks and throwing it into the thrashing machine, you know. And when they binded, they had to go out and load these bundles and bring them in and throw them in there, you know.
So how many weeks did we spend harvesting that?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. But you had the thrashing machine in the yard, oh gosh, maybe 3 days or more. I can't remember for sure. And I remember we thrashed, I don't know, was it 1 year after we were married? I can only remember 1 year. And I did not know how to cook. And I had to cook for the thrashers because Walden had to go out and help them. I know I made fried potatoes, and I know I added water. Why, I don't. And Waldemar told me afterwards, you don't add water to fried potatoes. But we didn't have a big group like they did years ago. They had bigger groups. Well, the men, when they were working with the thrashing machines, maybe my husband even, I know I had to milk alone because he was gone thrashing. They slept in the hayloft. There were so many men they couldn't let them all sleep in the house. Well, their families were big and they had the kids, you know. Or the women, like my mom, when they had there was no refrigerator. They had to butcher chickens early in the morning. First do their milking, I suppose, then butcher chickens. They had 2 lunches, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. 3 meals, breakfast, dinner, and supper. I don't know how they did it. I remember my neighbors were Edwin Humans. And their boys, oh, they hated that outhouse because of the spiders. And me, it was the snakes. Oh, I hated snakes. I know we had this house already, and we had a walkout basement because we built into a hill. And one day I was going to go into the basement, and there was a snake. And then Walt was working over, there was a creek in between the barn and the house, so Walt was over by the barn, and I called, there's a snake, and he knew he had to kill the snakes for me. He came over, he couldn't find it. It was a piece of grass.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He was a little upset with me because he had to come over. But oh, I climbed a ladder when there wasn't any. Oh, I hated snakes.
What kind of snakes were out there?
Well, just the garden snakes. There was nothing else. But I could not, I still can't stand them. When we lived in town, Walden had Parkinson's already. And I had a pail sitting out by the garden or where, by the house. And I wanted to water, and I lifted that up, and there was a snake under there. And then I came in, and I said, there's a snake out there. And, well, he finally did come out and kill it.
Well, there must have been a bunch of snakes out on the farm. Weren't there like a lot?
Well, we had a creek, you know, like we had to go across the creek. And I never liked that part because of snakes, you know. Gardening? Mm-hmm.
Do you remember anything about what kind of seeds, what kind of varieties of, or what you
Everything, anything. I know I had that picture, and I should have, today when I was looking for a picture, where we raised watermelon. And somebody told me that you're supposed to, when they get these knobs at the end of the vine, you're supposed to pull them off. And we did. Every knob I saw, I pulled off. We had big watermelons.
And you have a picture of that?
Yeah.
Oh, I hope you find the pictures.
Okay, I'll have to.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I canned a lot. You had cabbage, you had beets, carrots, onions, radishes, everything. I still garden. And my husband loved to garden. Oh, he liked gardening. What he believed in, like when it got dry or something, if he found a snake, he killed it and hung it on the fence. And within 3 days, you had rain. He believed in that.
And where were you in the blizzard of '66?
On the farm. That was a bad one. That was 3 days, I think.
And you were trapped out there with cattle.
To get to the barn to milk, seems to me we strung a rope or something when we went out the back, there was a fence, and then, or did we walk along the fence to the barn? No, you would have to go. So I don't remember how we would get to the barn. But I know one time, maybe that was a 66 blizzard. When we were out the evening, no, yeah, it could have been the 66 blizzard. We were in the milking, we were done milking, and then the cattle started to wander, like to get out of this blizzard or whatever. Then we had to get a cow around. I remember she was walking away. And, you know, it was a blizzard and the yard light. We had the new house already. So I wonder if that, yeah. We built this house in 63, so 66, yeah. And the yard light, and went from the barn, the yard light, I thought our house was on fire. You know, you get all that, and the two girls were in there, see. Oh, did that scare me. But it was just a blizzard. But that's when that Strasbourg little child froze. There was a child in Strasbourg that went out. He wanted to go out milking with his folks, is what the story we heard. And they wouldn't let him because the blizzard was. And he went out anyhow, and they couldn't find him. That must have been horrible. Oh my gosh. Yeah, in the old house we had a coal furnace.
Where did you get coal from?
Crines they had. They bought cream and they sold coal. It was Crine Company.
So you didn't have to go too far
No.
to get coal?
Mm-mm. William got married in 49, and then in 52, when we had our first baby, I went to the hospital. And when I came home, we had electricity. That was nice. That was nice. I remember that. And then when we moved into the new house, this house, you had an oil furnace. Walt didn't have to get up at night, and he always took care of the furnace. He always took care of the coal stove, you know. And then when we got the oil stove, I took care of it. I remember it being cold in the morning because they had to start the fire again. And I think it was a cook stove, and then they did have a space heater, but I'm sure that was, you know, coal also. When I think of it, oh my gosh, where they wash clothes.
Where did they wash clothes?
Well, they carried I did too, carried the water in and carried it out.
That's right, because without electricity, you don't pump water into your house.
And in the old house, and then in the new house, I got to wash it and dry it. No.
And where did you guys go to church when you were growing up?
Actually, my folks didn't go to church when we lived on that first farm until maybe, no, we started. We went to church. We were out on the farm yet, but then we moved further north, and I think that's when they probably started. Because my Verna, she was the youngest girl, and then my brother, they weren't baptized. They were kind of big already. I mean, maybe 6 or something like that. I don't know, 7, something like that. Oh, my brother. When we were on the first farm yet, and my mom had, I think, a hysterectomy. She was in the Bismarck Hospital. And my dad had us kids at home. And I probably, I don't know how old I was, maybe 8 or so. And I had to wash the separator. You had to go out to the barn and wash. And I set a pail on the chair, and the tea kettle, I filled the hot, maybe boiling water. And my sister brought my little brother out, carrying him, and set him in this pail, and it tipped over. Oh, was he scalded. He still has his marks and always will. And my mom was in the hospital. So my dad took him to Mr. Keebler. He was kind of a doctor, but you know, these home remedy things and all. And he got my brother. He couldn't walk anymore. He must have been like 1 or 2 maybe, I don't know, but he couldn't walk anymore, anything. I remember, I'll never forget that one either. Now, was it my fault or was it my sister's fault? I think it was my sister's fault. She shouldn't have put
So was this doctor, what was his name?
Adam Keebler. He was a farmer. He
Was he a faith healer or a bull healer or?
No, he knew remedies like for cattle. Ubler.
Okay.
Adam
write that down.
Keebler. Adam Keebler. He did a lot of things for a lot of people.
K-E-U?
Keubler.
Interesting. And he lived out north where you guys
Yeah.
lived? And people go to him to get fixed?
Well, I mean, he just did remedies. He probably knew what was good for a burn, or, he was scalded,
Well, when your brother was burned, did he like lose his skin? I mean, it must have been a fairly deep burn.
Oh,
Because
that
boiling
was.
water and a little baby.
You should see his marks on his butt. He had it on his butt, 'cause she sat him in this pail, see, and maybe down his legs too. I don't know. I don't know if Verna got any. I don't think Verna got any of that hot water, but my brother did. And then my dad didn't tell my mom until on the way home from Bismarck. We got married at the Congregational Church, which is where, you wouldn't know where, what's their name, Walter Malhoff's lived now. From the Lutheran, you know where the Lutheran church is. It's a block down and then Kitty Corner. That what used to be our church. It was a Congregational church. I got married in there. Yeah, my grandpa's farm. Was our wedding reception. And then we had a wedding dance at Bernstead. After that.
So you had people driving?
We probably had the wedding dance a week later, so I don't know. I remember going to Linton to have our picture taken, and we took Emma. She never got out, and we got along so good with Emma.
What was a Christmas celebration like?
Always at my mom and dad.